Hello, and welcome. I'm Lothran, and this is another story in the Stalktober special of the Heart of the Jakuls. There's so very much work to be done. Let's get right to it. So hurry up and grab that favorite snack of yours. Settle right into the absolute best spot, and get all nice and cozy to listen as carefully as you can to Broken Shards. Got another bucket. A thin-bodied little devil with his short, stumpy legs and his massive arms and hands pushed the overflowing bucket toward Vocal, pushing it ever so slightly closer as Vocal continued to work on what he was trying to finish. Hey there! Vocal turned his face up with a smile, remembering the rules he'd already set in his mind for dealing with these creatures. Are you all done? Do you want to have a break? The happy little monster nodded his smiling, pointed face and sat on his blunt, short, stout-tailed backside, looking up at Vocal happily. Do you need a different task? The pleased little guy nodded, shifting as if ready to perform another job. Vocal grinned pleasantly. These little fellows were quite nice to have around. He'd spent several months wandering the debris field, surviving on scraps left behind by predators, and foraging for food. But with the inconsistent help of these beasts, not especially smart, but more childlike than dumb, they had a naivety to the way they looked at the world. It did make them interesting to talk to, if difficult to deal with when they got upset. After the last incident, one had nearly smashed his face to pulp, turning a stone wall beside his skull to a pile of rubble and dust with a single punch. Vocal had adjusted his behavior for them just specifically. The result had actually been more productive. He'd gather food in the morning and then trade with one or two of these fellows. None of them seemed to have a gender. He had no idea where they came from and whatnot. And then the little guys would gather rocks or haul metal or sort artifacts or dig trenches. They seemed to revel in hard labor, but without instruction or someone to lead them, they just laid around all day, not getting very much accomplished. Do you want a name? Vocal asked of the beast. A name. Yeah, a name? Yeah. This one started shouting at the top of his lungs. Oh, yes, name. Good name, yes. Vocal tried to quiet the creature, but it was already too late. He snatched up the bucket and retreated into his small brick-and-mortar abode, the rumbling footsteps already starting to approach their location. Come on! Vocal pleaded for the frightened creature to come to his residence. He begged, slowly convincing it to brush past one fear in favor of hiding from a much larger and fiercer one. Vocal shut the door behind them, bolting it 3 times and locking each bolt in place. There was extremely dangerous shit out there. While you could travel around pretty easy without being noticed or hunted, being loud in any way was the worst sort of idea to maintain safety. I'm sorry. The little beast snuggled up against him with tears of fright in its eyes. Listen, you got excited. I should have invited you in before asking you that. I remember now how animated you little devils become. How you can't control yourself sometimes. We're both at fault here. You can stay till it's gone, okay? Vocal did his best to cheer the little critter up. I want my name to be Morek. I like the way, Morek's a good name. It nodded as it separated itself from Vocal's side to go take a seat nearby. Morek it is. Vocal set the bucket down, sorting through the old electronic parts. Most of them were fried and ruined, but every now and again there was a bit of wire he could scavenge to use either as cordage or to salvage for actual electrical work. Wow, just like that? Well, you've come back to help me every day for a month. You always do your work better than all the others. You don't get violent with me or the job, and you're real cute. He patted Morek on his head, and the little beast smiled up at him, nodding. Plus, you have mentioned several thousand times how you've always wanted a name, just like all the others. But the old name giver wasn't giving them out anymore for some reason. One day she found us, cared for us, built and asked us to build, like you do. taught us stuff, and then one day she was asleep, and she's been asleep all this time. Hasn't moved in all time. They did say this place, beyond the boundary, was a prison I'd never escape from. I'm glad I can be of a little service to those that have been so much help to me. You do more, a lot more. Morik shot back, almost glaring, but then cracked a smile and a smirk, showing all of his dagger-sharp teeth and hugging against Vokal's leg again. I like you the most. Morik snuggled into Vokil for some time. You mentioned her before, the name giver. Said she was looking for a place, a certain thing that your kind hadn't rediscovered yet. Oh yeah, we know it. Yeah, we found it for her when she was asleep. We tried to tell her, but she must have been tired because she wouldn't wake up. Vokal slowly extracted himself from Morik's grasp, or attempted to, but the little child-minded beast was much too strong and far too insistent to actually be convinced. So he gave up and pulled up his fashioned chair to plop down into instead. Sometimes it's better to give up than have your leg ripped off in a fit of possessiveness. You've done this thing before. You described the name giver as if you were there. I was. Morik let go of Vokal to contemplate the issue. But you said the name giver gave everyone names, and that there was many more of you at the time. You see, if there was more and they all had names, how is it that none of your group have names now? Morik seemed lost in his thoughts, finally realizing something he'd never even noticed before. They had a bunch of these conversations since Morik had made it a routine to hang around. He was actually improving, but it took a considerable amount of effort for him to do so, and as he got smarter, he lost some of his strength in the process somehow. You see, I think... Listen, Morik. Little Morik. Sometimes you mention a place that the name giver was looking for, but if I were to ask you now, you'd not be able to tell me where it is. How about we try something else? How about you take my arm and just lead me there? Morik's giant eyes went as wide as any eyes had ever been, and then he was dragging Vokil behind him, almost right through the heavily armored metal door. They walked along for several winding paths, to the point where Vokil got concerned about how far they were from his home. But then they turned into one of the large caverns that these little creatures slept within. Inside, they spent hours winding down and through and traveling through dozens of caves, turning this way and that, winding ever further closer to the bottom of the earth, the temperature increasing while they went, so much so that Vokil now sweated through all of his clothes, and he cursed at what he saw at the end of the path, trying to turn back, but Morik was now nowhere to be seen. You tricked me. You passed my test. The fallen diamond, leaning against a wall of coarse stones, flicked erratically with various colors of light as it spoke. I had to. I'm quite thoroughly fragmented in my old age. I've been talking to Morik, Vokal said, feeling a rising knot of fear, dismay, and dread seep into every last ounce of his body. What am I looking at? Slow breaths. The diamond, fractured and cut in a dozen places, flickered with each word, but ever so faintly. I can ask them to do things, but only when they're here. How then? Morik, as you call it, is more curious than the others, remembers things easier. The light went out for several minutes before coming back. I hope you're not too late. There's a lot I need to get done, but... The diamond fell silent again for a long time. Vokal stood there, paralyzed by incredible force of otherworldly horror flowing through his veins. Sorry. I'll speak again soon. Skip the explanations. Not enough time. Behind me is a path. I can light only the once. Follow it. Don't move from the trail. You might have to fight some things. If you make it there, you'll find many hand-sized diamonds. Consider them. The diamond cut off again. Pick the one you feel most connected to. Make it back here. Remove me from the circle. You must remove me. I cannot be here. And then plant. It broke off for another minute or so. Wait. Where? What am I? Must remove me. Plant it. Here, the gold hexagon beneath me. There's so much more. The diamond faded off as the lights came on behind the odd seat it rested upon. Volko looked at the jet-black winding tunnels he'd been led through, knowing he really didn't have an option. This was so completely fucked. And so it is, we've come to the end of our time together once more. As always, I've been your happy host, Lothran, and this was Broken Shards. Another tale right from the heart of the Jakuls. I hope you've enjoyed this encounter. I know I have. I lead you once more to the path and the way out. Go ahead, little worm. Show them the way.
Hello and good night to each and all. Leave your comments, questions, and kindness down below. Like and share to help us learn, spread, and grow. And don't forget, we encourage each and every one of you to do your absolute best to stay safe out there. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.